Alright, so I'm making this video because I had a few requests to make a Legion guide video. I apologize if I sound a little under the weather. I'm still dealing with my sickness, but it's getting better. So, because we had questions on Legion builds, I thought I'd go over just about everything possible, from add-ons to perks, and how you want to also run Legion. So, starting out with add-ons, we'll start with the brown add-ons. So for the brown add-ons, we have the smiley face pin. Hitting a survivor highlighted by Killer Instinct will, while in Feral Frenzy, applies the blindness status effect for 60 seconds. This pin is really not useful. Blindness does basically nothing. All it does is hide auras, and honestly, it's just not worth it to run. Then you have Scratched Ruler, slightly decreases the time required to refill the power gauge. This one is not too terrible, only because having your power up more often is better if they're going to be healing a lot. You can't usually predict. Some people just don't heal against Legion, which would make this somewhat useless, but in the event you need your power back, it can have its moments. Then you have Mischief List, slightly increased Feral Frenzy duration. This one is, out of all the brown add-ons, this one is definitely the better one. It also recently got a buff in 3.4.1, I believe, or 3.4.0, either way. So this one, even now, I think there's a few videos I have where I was actually running this with just the Legion pin itself. So it's still really good to run if you don't have any other duration add-ons. Friendship Bracelet slightly increases Killer Instinct detection range. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about Never Sleep pills. They moderately increase the detection range of Killer Instinct, and same with Susie's Mixtape. Tremendously increase Killer Instinct. If you see them across map, what are you going to do? Like, if you're looking to find where people are cross map and whatnot, just run Barbecue. So anything that increases Killer Instinct detection range, don't bother running it. Seeing people so far away is just going to end up fucking you up on whether or not they're close enough to make it with Feral Frenzy or not. So I would just completely ignore Susie's Mixtape, Never Sleep pills, and Friendship Bracelet. They're pointless. Next up, in the yellows, we have Mural Sketch, moderately increases Feral Frenzy duration. This one is good to run at any time. You can run it low ranks, high ranks, mid ranks, doesn't matter. It's good. Gives you a decent amount of time in Feral Frenzy, so you can get those chain stabs that are very important. Next up, we have Julie's Mixtape, slightly decreases the cooldown on Feral Frenzy. This one is not terrible. If you don't have many options for add-ons, you can absolutely run it. But there are obviously better options. It's not going to make a big difference to that cooldown. The cooldown on it is simply just afterwards when you get stunned and look at your hands. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it's something. Etched Ruler moderately decreases the time required to refill the power gauge. This is good if you're going to be running a build along with Frank's Mixtape. I'll explain more of that later, but this one is definitely a step up. You could also run like Etched Ruler and Scratched Ruler if you really want to, for a little bit of a heavy power Legion if you really want to be spreading around and injuring people constantly. But you're giving up duration, so it's kind of an iffy thing. If you don't have other duration add-ons and you're kind of low on add-ons, you could run both of them, but still not bad. Next up is D-Face Smiley Pin. Hitting a survivor highlighted by Killer Instinct while in Feral Frenzy applies the Mangled status effect for 60 seconds. This one is actually pretty good. This one allows you to slow down not only the game, but slow down their healing, which may, for the next 60 seconds, they may not want to heal. They may want to wait for it to go away before they heal, so not to waste more time and just do gens, which allows you to possibly catch them off guard and keep them injured. Not bad, but it's not the best. One of the best ones is this one, the Legion Pin. Hitting a survivor while highlighted by Killer Instinct in Feral Frenzy applies the Broken status effect. That is 60 seconds where they cannot heal. This is Now, aside from the first person you hit in Feral Frenzy, they are not affected by it, so they can heal, of course, but everybody else is broken, so it's nice to chain stab and then leave the first person. If they want to heal, they can. That's fine, they're wasting time. Now you're in a chase with someone who's broken, so you don't have to worry about any kind of insta heals like the syringe, or you don't have to worry about them maybe healing up a bit here and there on the side. If they get away from you, you know they're broken, they're not healing, they're not going to get healed by anyone, and even if they get taken off hook after you down them right away, they will still keep that broken status effect for a little while, depending on how much time has passed. This is also very good in conjunction with certain builds. I will be going over that later. Next up, we have Stolen Sketchbook, probably one of Legion's best items, or best add-ons. Considerably increased Feral Frenzy duration. This is what will get you across map constantly. Obviously, the bigger maps, you just can't make it. Even with Mural Sketch and Stolen Sketchbook, a double duration add-on, it's very hard. But it allows those chain stabs to be more reasonable with the distance in between the survivors. This is definitely an add-on that you'll see is ran all the time by just about any Legion player, and especially by me. Next up, we have Nasty Blade. Slightly increases the amount of time required for survivors to mend. Not much else can be said. It's pretty nice to... It's just a slowdown item. That's really all it is. It's not bad. I would definitely take it, you know, here and there, depending on what you got for add-ons. Obviously, there's better options, but it's definitely better than a lot of this down here. Next up, we have Joey's Mixtape. Moderately decreases the cooldown duration of Feral Frenzy. Now we're getting into territory where it still won't do as much as it used to do. Old Legion cooldown add-ons were a lot better, but it's getting there, and it is actually part of a certain cooldown Legion build that, again, we'll be going over more in depth. Still not terrible. You can even combine it with the sketchbooks if you want to kind of help end that Feral Frenzy and get out of your stun sooner. Next up is Stab Wound Study. Considerably decreases the deep wound timer of all survivors. So what this means is when you stab someone with Feral Frenzy, they're going to be missing a small chunk of their deep wound timer right off the bat. But you don't have to hit them twice with Feral Frenzy for this to happen. It's just on the first stab, they lose a small chunk. They won't lose any more chunks when you keep stabbing them, but that small chunk is the Stab Wound Study kicking in. So it gives them less time for reactionary mending. So if you stick on someone, now with the new mending changes, since they have to be either sprinting or mending, you can potentially knock them down. It's not a great add-on, but it can work in certain builds. There are definitely builds for this. So I'd put it like a mid-tier add-on. It's good to run, but if you find in your blood webs, you know, don't grab it if you don't really need it, unless you're going for that kind of specific build. Next up is Frank's Mixtape. This item caused so many issues when Legion first came out, and now it's kind of almost a joke. So it allows Feral Frenzy attacks to moderately reduce the deep wound timer. So it takes the initial stab to apply the deep wounds, and then it takes, I believe, 4 additional stabs to down someone, depending, because they can lose a little bit here and there if they're like trying to flashlight blind you and whatnot, because with the new deep wound changes, if you're sitting there at a pallet and you're breaking it after they drop it and they decide to flashlight you, for those 2 seconds, they lose a bit of deep wound timer until they start sprinting, and then if they try walking around, they're still losing deep wound timer, so you can potentially knock them down a bit more. This is a lot better combined with either Stab Wound Study or Edged Ruler. But other than that, it's more of just memes. That's really all it is. Sorry. Next up is Filthy Blade. Moderately increases the amount of time required for survivors to mend. Same as Nasty Blade. It's a little bit longer, but you can run it. This will put it back to base time on mending before they just recently nerfed it down to 12 seconds. So I believe this will put it to believe it puts it to 13.5 or 14 seconds, somewhere around there. Next up we have Cold Dirt. Considerably decreases the cooldown duration of Feral Frenzy. This is where you want to combine this with Joey's Mixtape, and if you do that, you take an entire second off of your stun. So your stun is about 4 seconds after Feral Frenzy. Now it's going to be 3 seconds. That's what Legion's was base. And because of double cooldown add-ons, it made it like 2 seconds or something like that. It was really stupid. But I think if you're going to keep cooldown add-ons like this that are a little weaker, you could reduce him back down to 3 seconds. And then this way, together, it's only 2 seconds, but double add-on. You can do that again, but because there's not as much trouble with his power, I think it'd be a little bit better. It's not bad. You can definitely run it for a cooldown build, or you could even run it just by itself, because that little bit, that 0.6 seconds or whatever that it takes off, is still fairly noticeable, so it's fairly nice for that. Next up is probably actually it is his best add-on, besides Sketchbook, is Iridescent Button. During Feral Frenzy, your terror radius affects the entire map, and any pallets you vault are immediately broken. It lasts until the power gauge is depleted. So, you get someone in a chase, you stab them, you go to get some more chain stabs, and say they're hiding by a pallet. If you fake them out like you're going to go through, and you get them to drop a pallet, now you can vault it, and they either have to run away, and you'll catch them, or they have to try to juke through, but now the pallet's been vaulted and broken, so they can't juke through, so you're just going to catch them. So pallets become very unsafe, and you can get rid of a lot of god pallets and a lot of unsafe pallets from survivors that are very timid about letting you stab them for whatever reason. This is just a really good add-on, though, and with the terror radius affecting the entire map, you can do a bunch of terror radius builds if you really want to. And finally, Fuming Mixtape. While using Feral Frenzy, the repair progress of generators can be determined by the intensity of their auras. I personally don't like this item, but there are builds for it, or there are ways to make it somewhat useful. I'm just personally not the biggest fan of this. That is my personal opinion. If you like the item, by all means, use it, and I'll still give you builds for most of these add-ons. I won't be giving you builds for like this kind of stuff, like the brown ones, because the brown ones there's no real builds built around them. They're just there to help. But if you want to do like cooldown builds, if you want to do mending builds, Frank's builds, I can give you builds for that. So that's what I'll be going over next. Now then, going over Legion for perks. There's tons of perks in the game. You may not have all of them. That's fine. I'll be going over initial perk builds for every stage. So, the Legion starts out with his 3 base perks, which are Iron Maiden, Discordance, and finally, of course, Mad Grid, which I'm pretty sure I just went right past. Yeah, Mad Grid. So, those are his 3 main perks that you start off with, and honestly, Mad Grit is good for basement builds. That's about it. Iron Maiden, that's for Huntresses, straight up. I don't think Legion can ever really take advantage of it. He can get across map to them, but by the time he gets across map, stuns himself, the 15 seconds will be over. So, the exposed doesn't mean anything, and opening lockers faster, Legion doesn't care about that. But, Discordance. This is a perk that is really, really good for Legion. I would never say that it's necessary. I wouldn't say that this is a necessity. You do not need this to play Legion. But, since you are given it for free on Legion, it's really nice to run. Especially early on when you don't have many perks. This perk is good at tier 1. It gets worse at tier 2 and tier 3. The reason why is because the time gets increased. So now, generators highlighted in yellow, the auras are revealed for 12 seconds. Yes, that's good that it's revealed for a longer time, but when you get the notification, there's one of those explosions like you get for when someone's vaulting or when someone drops a pallet or someone's AFK. Those kind of explosions only go off every 12 seconds. But at tier 1, it goes off every 8 seconds. So it lets you know that survivors are still working on the gen. Whereas every 12 seconds, they could just jump on it, think you hear you coming, and then jump off of it. Or if they're in voice comms, they could hear, oh, hey, he's coming across map, and then they get off of it, and now it's still highlighted in yellow, and you think they're still there until you get over there and realize they've already left, and now they're on separate gens. Discordance is good initially. As you get smarter survivors, they're going to realize you have it because you keep coming to generators with multiple people right away. So then they'll start working on gens separately. It really does slow the game down in that sense. But for Legion, it's very good for the early picks. You can run it. You don't have to. Like I said, it's not a necessity in the slightest, but it is a very, very strong perk for Legion. Now then, getting into perks that I think Legion should avoid, just because of the recent changes. So we'll start at the beginning. So first and foremost, Bloodhound. You have absolutely no need for this. Tracking blood. I mean, you can't even see blood in your frenzy to begin with, or scratch marks. And, like, it just doesn't help. Tracking the blood, unless you start combining it with, like, Sloppy Butcher and whatnot, it's not going to work out well. And Sloppy Butcher doesn't even work on your frenzy anymore. So there's no point. Dark Devotion. This one used to be okay for some meme Legion builds, but because your Feral Frenzy does not activate it, does not matter. Because who cares if you down the survivor with your Terror Radius? Doesn't mean anything. Franklin's you do not need anymore because it's basic attacks, as they say on the text. So again, Legion, it does not affect. Cruel Limits and Furtive Chase, both these are just not really that good of perks. There's just no point in running them, like, at all. Like, blocking this off in a 24-meter radius. There are some gens that are literally sitting out in the middle of nowhere. They're not going to block anything, so there's no point. Plus, it's every time a gen's completed. And this, who cares if you're in chase and your terror radius is smaller? It doesn't mean anything at all. It doesn't do shit. You want to avoid Hex Devour Hope because most of the time they're going to be either injured all the time, or even if they're healthy, you're going to be wanting to stab multiple people, and stacking it up just is kind of a bother. There's no point in it. Third Seal, same thing with before. Basic attacks are needed for this, so there's no point in blinding someone that you just downed. Mind Break, in theory, it's good to counter Sprint Burst, but that's about it. It doesn't really counter much else. Plus it's only 3 seconds, so when they get to a pallet, they could just drop the pallet, walk for a couple seconds while you're taking your time to break it, and then they have their speed boost back. So now they've led you on a chase, and now they just suddenly sprint burst it away. Or now they have Dead Hard or Lithe, whatever. It's not worth it. Make your choice. Again, not worth it, because if they're all injured, who cares? You're not going to get the insta-downs. So, and your frenzy isn't going to do anything for it. So don't worry about this perk either. Or Haunted Grounds, sorry. Haunted Grounds, same thing. Anything with exposed, it just doesn't, there's no point in bothering with Legion. Same with No One Escapes Death. Insidious, why? Why would you ever run this? There's absolutely zero reason for you to be standing still as Legion and camping, because you're not going to instantly down someone. They're probably going to be healed up and then coming down there for the save. Or if they're on voice comms, you're just wasting your time. It's not like a Leatherface kind of thing. Leatherface can get away with that shit, but that's because he's got an insta-down. You don't. Don't ever run Noed. It's a crutch perk. You don't need it. The only time you run it is for that stupid archive challenge. Other than that, don't worry about Noed. Monstrous Shrine is garbage. That's just enough said there. Lightborn, unless you're versed in flashlights every fucking game, I honestly don't see the point in this perk even existing. Nemesis can work for some builds. Remember Me, another one you don't want to run because it's basic attacks on the Obsession, so of course you'll get them over time by downing them, but if you down the Obsession 3 times, that's a pretty good sign that they're dead, so you're not even going to get the full stacks. Territorial Imperative, you're not going to need to care about your basement this much. That's all it's for, is basement builds. Save the best for last. This used to be good on Legion, but I never really understood why people loved it so much. Because you should be injuring them all the time, so the cooldown on your knife means nothing. Next up, Rancor. Again, it's another one where they're, like, at the end of the game, if you want that one person that's exposed and you left them alone the whole game, like, then you just become an M1 killer. And sure, you get a Mori out of it, but you're missing a perk slot for killing one person, for sure. Maybe, if they don't escape. Spies from the Shadow. This perk, the explosions really just kind of fuck you up. Plus, with all the crows jumping around, you never know. It's not like it tracks one person. It could explode in front of you and then explode behind you 5 seconds later because someone else is running around in your terror radius. So it's just not a good tracking perk. Unrelenting should never be ran. There's just no point in reducing your attacks missed. Just don't miss. Like, just swing when you know you have them or when you have a better chance of hitting them. Beast of Prey. This makes you undetectable after you get Bloodlust Tier 1. If you're in Bloodlust Tier 1, it doesn't matter. They're going to be seeing you. They're not going to walk away from you or anytime soon. Deerstalker. Deerstalker's one you can argue running. If you don't have the best headset or if you need help finding people on the ground, go ahead and run it. Other than that, that's about it. It's just a learning perk until you learn to hear. Thrill the Hunt is iffy. I'll leave it at that. I could give you guys something for that. Hangman's Trick, it's there to help a problem that doesn't exist anymore, which is survivors sabotaging hooks all the time. And bear traps, I guess. Fire Up. For each generator completed, gain a 4% stackable buff, granting speed boost to picking up, dropping, pallet breaking, generator breaking, and vaulting for the remainder of the trial. Yeah, this... Why would you want them to get gens done for your perk to become active? I'm all ears. No one should be fast vaulting or doing a break action while you're around. Like, unless you're chasing them, but then it doesn't matter to see their aura. Knockout. Legion doesn't care. Legion doesn't care if they are within 16 meters to see them. Legion doesn't have any need for this. Like, you're not going to do a slugging Legion build. It's just not going to work out. Your power doesn't help you for slugging. So, it does injure them, sure, but a slugging Legion build just doesn't make sense. Because they're just going to keep picking them up. Overwhelming Presence. Garbage. It's just a garbage. Like, why are they using their items in your terror radius? There's no point. Unless you're doing a full-on, like, iridescent button with terror radius covering the map. And even then, that's iffy. That's really iffy, because they get a little icon next to them so they could just stop using the item. Predator. Scratch marks left spawn considerably closer together. This one is... I don't know. It feels like it makes things more confusing, to be honest. Because with the scratch marks being so close, it just doesn't feel right. Sloppy Butcher, I already explained, it doesn't work on Legion, so don't bother running it. Surge, that's iffy. That's more personal preference right there. I don't care for this one that much. But it could be run because Legion injures people so easily. And then Xanashin Tactics. I didn't think this perk was good to begin with. I still don't think this perk's good to begin with. So, I just don't see any use. Now then, getting on to Legion builds. For starters, I'm going to say this right off the bat. The one perk that I think almost every Legion main should probably have is Monitor Interviews. It reduces your terror radius by 8 meters, but when you're in a chase, it increases it by 8 and increases your field of view by 10 degrees. So, reducing that terror radius, you go from a 32 meter terror radius down to a 24 meter terror radius. This opens the gate for a lot of builds. Say you run Modern and Abuse, and you want to run Discordance, Nurse is Calling, and you run the Mangled Pin with Thanatophobia. Like this right here, this is a solid build in and of itself. You slow them down by having them split off of gens. You slow them down with Thanatophobia, and when they try to heal, you can get in close. That right there already is one good build. Another thing you could run is you could do straight up well, you can keep Discordance, but you could switch out this for everyone's favorite Ruin. Ruin, I don't think is necessarily 100% needed, but it makes life a hell of a lot easier. Now, the build I mainly use is going to involve this. It's going to be Modern Abuse, Thanatophobia, Ruin, and Pop Goes the Weasel. This will slow the game down a shit ton. So you don't have Discordance to find people, but you have Pop Goes the Weasel to regress generators by 25% after hooking a survivor. So any of those generators that they do get far on, you can kick and knock them down a bit. Hex Ruin, everyone knows what this does. It slows the game down a shit ton, and it can either last you all game or it can go within the first 5 seconds of the game. It's a hit or miss on Hex Ruin. Always has been, always will be. Thanatophobia, for each injured survivor, receive a 4% penalty up to 16% to healing, repair, and sabotage speeds. This is Legion's. This could almost be Legion's bread and butter because Legion is so good at injuring people, and people do not want to eat Thanatophobia. Like, even if Ruin's down, you have this as your backup along with Pop. And then Modern Abuse, I explained. Now, getting into other builds you could do. If you want to, you could do a proper Terror Radius build. Now, for a Terror Radius build, you're going to do Distressing to increase your Terror Radius by 26%. You do Chlorophobia to survivors within your terror radius have 50% penalty to healing speeds. And then you're going to want to run... Where are you? You could run Overwhelming Presence here if you really wanted to. But you want Unnerving Presence so you can make the skill check zones smaller and increase the chance that they appear. You do not want Monitor and Abuse. And you could run, you know, just to make life worse for them, you can run Hexed Ruin on top of that. You could also combine this, if you wanted to, instead of Ruin, combine this with Infectious Fright. So then when you down someone and a chase, you find everyone in your terror radius. So they might be far away, but you know they're there. And for this kind of build, you'd want to run the Iridescent Button and Stolen Sketchbook and kind of run around in Frenzy. You could also switch out Sketchbook for Edge to Ruler if you wanted to have it up more often. But run around and just find people and just cause them to fuck up skill checks constantly. It's a good time. It honestly is. You could also combine this, if you want to, instead with Overcharge. So after you kick that gen, that skill check is going to be even smaller now. So makes life a hell of a lot harder to get any gens done or get anything done. If you want to go for a more base Legion build, Barbecue and Chili, throw in some brutal strength to get through pallets, and then you could do, we'll just do a Rush Legion build. So then Spirit, Fury, Enduring. This is an insane combo. This allows you to kick gens and pallets a lot faster. And then, of course, Barbecue and Chili, any survivors outside of 40 meters of the hook get revealed to you for 4 seconds. And each time you hook a unique survivor, you get a 25% stackable bonus up to 100% bonus of blood points. So this is literally, you find someone and you end the chase almost immediately. They drop a pallet early, fine. Kick through it, stack up Spirit Fury, and move on. They drop the pallet on your head, you resist it by 50% and either kick it or you resist it in Spirit Fury and just take them down. Now if you don't want to run Brutal Strength and you want to throw in either Hex Ruin, Pop Goes the Weasel, or Monitor and Abuse, absolutely go ahead with that. And then you can run iridescent buttons. So when you're chasing them, you just pop over the pallet, and if you're still in frenzy after you stab them and you've got Spirit Fury Enduring up, then when they drop the pallet on your head, when you're in frenzy, it'll break and you won't take the frenzy stun. You'll just come right out of it. You'll take the pallet stun instead, and then you can just down them. Absolutely amazing. Fun combo. You got to be wary, though, of gen speeds. Gen speeds can go very quick, which is why I recommend either Ruin or Pop in this build. So every time you hook someone, you can slow down another gen. Legion also recently has some newer builds that have been going actually pretty well and have gained a little bit of popularity. So we're going to grab Pop, and you're going to want Blood Echo with, nope, Thanatophobia. And instead of Pop, you can always exchange it out with Ruin. So this is quite a build. Okay? So you have Thanatophobia to slow down gens. Since Legion can sneak up on people now and see them a little bit easier, you have Monitor Abuse for that. You have Pop Goes a Weasel, of course, for reducing gens as well, to slow them down. And then you have Blood Echo. So anytime you hook a survivor, any other injured survivors suffer from the hemorrhage status effect, so they're going to be bleeding more frequently. That part you don't care about, but they're also exhausted for 45 seconds. Okay, so now the hemorrhaging only lasts, status effect lasts until they're healed. That's fine. The exhausted, though, 45 seconds, and it has a cooldown of 60 seconds. So now everyone that you just injured very easily with your power, they're now exhausted. There's no dead hard, there's no sprint burst, there's no balance landing, there's no lithe. None of that. There's no head on if they wanted to try that too. This is actually a pretty strong build. It's very annoying too, because you're constantly keeping people injured, and even if they want to heal, for this build, I would run Stolen Sketchbook and I would run the Legion pin. A build like that, just you have one person that can heal out of the entire group. Everybody else is injured and broken. And now you just get to sit there and enjoy easy chases where they have to drop pallets right away. Or they have to really know how to loop, be strong loopers, otherwise they're going to get killed by you very quickly. And even if they heal up, Legion's power allows you to injure them very, very quickly. So it gives you a lot of momentum that Legion lacks in his base kit. But another one that I want to talk about is Play With Your Food, Nemesis, Pop, and Ruin. So for this one, you got your 2 gen slowdowns. That's fine. Nemesis, anytime you get stunned by a pallet or a locker, so head on works too. The survivor becomes your obsession. Oh, and also if they blind you. So they become your obsession, and they gain the Oblivious status effect for 60 seconds, and their aura is shown to you for 4 seconds. So this will switch up the obsession quite a bit and allow you to gain stacks of Play With Your Food. Play With Your Food, each time you lose a chase, you gain a 5% speed boost up to 3 tokens. Any offensive action spends 1 token. So if you swing and you miss, or if you swing and hit a wall, you lose a token. If you swing and hit them, you lose a token. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't have to be the obsession, can be anyone. Same with your frenzy strikes. But the idea is get people injured right away, get them all hurting. This one, again, will be a good one for the broken pin. The broken pin is insane for a lot of these combos because it keeps them injured. And then you let them pallet stun you. You break the pallet and let them kind of get away. Just be ready to follow the scratch marks, and then you either move on to someone else, or you chase that person down. And now that 5% extra movement speed, Legion's already 115%. So with that, he's now going to be 120% movement speed. That is insanely fast. You are going to catch them. You are going to catch up even if you just lost the chase, because they are going to still be running. And even if they stop running, you should be able to hear them unless they're running Iron Will. this is great. This is a really good build. I don't actually have the Nemesis or the Blood Echo perk yet, but I have done some play with it in custom games with a few friends, and it's insanely hard to deal with. You just end chases so much faster. Loops where they normally can get like 2, maybe 3 times around, now they only get 1, maybe 2 if they're lucky. So, and that's also based on tokens. So if you have all 3 tokens though, you're going to end those chases a lot sooner. That's 130% movement speed. They are going to expect them to get at least 2 loops out of like 1 pallet, and you're going to end that right away. You're going to end that on the first loop, and it's going to cut everyone off and be like, oh shit, what do we do now? We can't loop them, but we also can't pallet stun them. This will cause them to drop pallets early if they think about it, but that's not always the best case, because if they drop God pallet early, then Killer Shack becomes your domain. If they drop a lot of other pallets early, they're going to run out of pallets very quickly, and you're still going to end up catching up to them even for breaking it, so it makes up for not having Brutal Strength, Spirit Fury, Enduring, makes up for all of that. So this is a very strong build. If you have the Oni, if you have those perks, definitely go for this, or the Blood Echoes build. If you don't, then like I said, the Ruin, Pop, Monitor and Abuse with Thanatophobia. This is my go-to build. This is what I run at my rank 1, and then I either run Stolen or Mural with the Legion pin, or I run it with Iridescent Button. And if you ever have a build where you want to do Frank's Mixtape, what you want to do is you want to do Etched Ruler and Frank's, or Stab and Study and Frank's, and the build honestly doesn't mean as much. You're just supposed to chase people down, stab them until they go down, and take advantage of that. If you want to exchange one of these out for like Tinkerer, so when a generator is 85% repaired, you get a trigger notification and you get undetectable status for 12 seconds. Allows you to get a little bit closer, get a few more stabs in. This way you can stab multiple people. It works well with Discordance too, because if you're going to do a build like this, I would almost recommend taking out Pop, because you're not going to be hooking as quickly if you're going for stabs, and putting in Discordance so you can stab multiple people at once, or taking Thrilling Tremors, so when you pick them up, it blocks the gens that aren't being repaired on for 16 seconds, and it has a 60-second cooldown. Any generators that aren't blocked, you now know from picking up that one person who's working on those gens. You now know someone's on that gen, so after I hook this person, I need to go to that gen. This is good for slowing it down too while you're taking your time with Franks. If you want to do a cooldown build, these two are your go-to. They're gonna definitely help. They're gonna reduce that timer from 4 seconds to 3 seconds on your stun, and make life a little bit easier after like if you stab someone and you can't see anyone nearby, or the closest person is very far away and you know you can't make it because of this build, then you can just pop out of your power and begin the chase. Another combo you can do, Stolen Sketchbook and Fuming Mixtape. I told you I'd give you a build for this. There's not much. It works really well with Pop. It's got very, very good synergy with Pop, and since it's in the shrine right now, this would be the time to do something like that. So you can get a longer duration of looking at the gens, and after you hook someone, you know where you want to pop the gen. If you see the aura is more red on one gen or more pinkish on one gen compared to the other ones that are all white, then you know that's the one you want to go pop, so you get more value out of it. Now, if you want to, you can also do Iron Grasp and Mad Grit and Agitation, and you can do a basement build. Just trying to get them to the basement as quick as you can. Run Ruin to kind of slow them down a bit. Iridescent Button to break pallets, so you don't have to run back and break pallets. You can kind of keep them in the basement. You don't want to camp the basement, but keep them in. If you don't have Ruin and you want something else to run and you don't have Pop, Corrupt Intervention is good to slow games down too. Blocks off the furthest 3 gens from you for 2 minutes, those 2 minutes give you time to find people, because all you need to do is find one person and stab them, and there you go. You will find people. It's how Legion works. You just will. So it makes it a lot better, but the hardest part is finding that first person, finding that one person that's out positioned, or that's just out in the middle of nowhere doing nothing, or find that one person that's working on a gen that's not blocked off. So you could do Corrupt Intervention, not necessarily with this build, but you know, with other builds. And if you don't have any kind of gen slowdown, Discordance combined with Whispers, combined with, could do Bitter Murmur if you need something like that. Could. But yeah, we'll do Bitter Murmur. We'll say you have nothing. Bitter Murmur, and then either Deerstalker or Iron Grasp. Any of those will definitely help. This could be a base Legion build. This helps you find people. It doesn't help you end chases or slow down gens, but you find people a lot quicker, which is always helpful, because then you can start chases sooner and you can get them off gens and make sure you just manage around your gens. You could also do Totem Protector Legion. Totem Protector is, it's just a meme. That's really all it is, but it could be a fun time. So for this one, this is where you'll be breaking a few rules. You'll want to run, oh, there you go. You'll want to run stuff like this, or instead of Devour Hope, run Huntress's Lullaby, so you can reduce gens a little bit more and get rid of those skill check warnings, which isn't bad, but if you're paying attention, you'll notice it. So this will spawn 2 Hex Totems and expose people that destroy one of them. This spawns 1 totem, this spawns 1 totem, this spawns 1 totem. So all 5 totems are Hex Totems. You'll get a little explosion notification each time that they start working on a Hex Totem, and their cleansing speed is reduced by 6% for each token. You gain a token for each totem remaining on the map, for each doll totem or Hex Totem. So they're trying to do any of these 5 totems. It's going to take them a while, and the nice thing is too, they know Ruin's available, they know Huntress is available. Once they work on a totem, they know Thrill the Hunt's there, so they know they got to be careful about you working on totems. And even if they're looking for these, they might end up popping this one, and then if you haven't injured anyone, or if you have only a couple people injured, you know where it just blew up, you know where they were, and maybe you were heading in that direction anyway. Now you can just go down people and hook them and get Huntresses stacked up. Makes it harder to find Ruin, of course, but if they find Thrill the Hunt, then this build falls apart quickly. It's a fun time. It can be a fun time. So, other than that, you could also do Dying Light as far as a gen perk. Like if you need something to slow down gens and you don't really have much going for you, you do Dying Light. If you don't have, say, Hex Ruin, but maybe you have Enduring and Spirit Fury. So every time you hook a survivor, their repair, healing, sabotage speed are reduced by 3% for each token. Once the obsession dies, then you lose all tokens. That's the downside of this. But anybody running D-Strike will become the obsession, so you don't want to tunnel, but in case you do get caught off guard by one of those D-Strikes, now that person that just got off hook is the obsession. So if anything, now you can go start hooking the obsession that you maybe weren't before. You don't want to avoid hooking him, but you want to try to avoid killing him. At least get 2 hooks out of him just to waste his time. Because he's got 33% action speed bonus to unhooking and healing other survivors. So you want to try to keep him under control, but you don't want to kill him because you don't want to lose all your tokens. In the same regard, though, if you're hooking a lot and you're gaining these tokens up, you probably don't need too much help on gens. It's just that little extra bonus. Strider is a really good perk too for Legion because they're always injured, so you can hear their pain grunts 50% louder, and their regular breathing is 25% louder. This is really good if you're gonna sound whore the hell out of people. Again, combining this one with the Legion pin because the Legion pin is godly. It's one perk though that can be countered by Iron Will. Iron Will, you'll heal them if they're not injured more because of the 25% increased breathing, but when they are injured, pretty sure you barely hear them. Like, it's very, very, very slight, so you got to be really listening. But if you don't have this combo, like I said, if you just have Brutal Strength and you have Ruin or Pop, and then you have Barbecue and Chili since that was just in the Blood Web, this is fine too. This helps you get through pallets. You never want to really be afraid of pallets. As Legion, you always want to, well, as any killer, you always want to try to strike through them, because some survivors will fake you out and try to think that, oh, you know, like, he's going to respect the pallet, so I can take a second and fake him out. Well, if they take that second to fake you out at the pallet, when they're going to fake out dropping it, just make you back up so they can do one more loop, and instead you swing through it, you're just going to get a hit or maybe a down for that, and they might drop the pallet late and get you a pallet too. If you got survivors that are dropping pallets early, you can break through it and you can get back into the chase sooner. Also, of course, helping you kick gens faster. The other tips that I can give you on Legion is when you stab someone in Feral Frenzy and you want to chase them, if they're getting to a pallet right away, don't be afraid to just let them stun you out of Frenzy, because the stun through Frenzy, even without enduring, the stun on Frenzy lasts longer than it does to get stunned by a pallet. A pallet stun will actually help you get back to the chase faster, even if you don't have Brutal Strength or Enduring or any of that. If you do, it's even better. But if you don't, let them stun you out of your power. Don't do it all the time, only if they're going to make it to a pallet. Then, you know, let them stun you, because then you get a pallet out of the way, and now they're maybe in no man's land, or maybe they have to scramble to find the next pallet. But it makes life a little bit easier, because now you don't have a 4-second stun, you have like a 2 or 3 second stun. It's a lot nicer to do that than it is to take the stun on your base kit, which is kind of sad that you have to let yourself get pallet stun to get a reduced cooldown. But it is what it is. The other thing too, if you're coming to the end of your frenzy and you're not going to make it to the survivor to stab them, instead of ending your power, use your lunge attack in frenzy to get a little extra distance, and then the stun. Sometimes you can close that gap a little bit sooner. You may be able to either end the chase or get a hit off before they make it to that pallet that they're running to, or to that window that they're trying to get to. It's just that little extra mileage and the small things like that that help you a lot. Other than that, the other things with Legion is just basic mind games. You really need to learn loop mind games, pallet mind games. Once you get used to those, Legion becomes a lot more deadly, because they're always injured, and even if they're healing, they're wasting time, so that gives you more time to find people. And I guess that's really it. Pop is in the shop right now, or in the shrine. I highly recommend that, personally. It's one of my favorite perks on Legion. Monitor and Abuse, though, I think is the only perk I will tell you at this point is a necessity. You can obviously there are builds without it. There are 100% builds that you can run without it, and if you don't have it, it's not like you're gonna lose 50% more games, or you're gonna win 50% more games with this perk. But it does help you close that gap. So at that point, then it's your call to take over. This right here, like I said, is my build. This is what I use for Legion. This is my favorite build. I may have only had a few videos with this build. I've been having trouble finding Monitor and Abuse actually in the Blood Web, but whenever I get it, this is my end game build. This is what I use. The field of view is always nice to see people. That reduced terror radius is nice to close the gap, so you can sneak up on survivors, get more hits, or start the chase sooner. Maybe even if you want, even if you can possibly sneak up on someone that's on your totem, either grab them off or get the stab to start things going. Or you can sneak up on people that are healing too, because it's going to take a little bit. Plus, like I said, Monitor Abuse opens the gates for, instead of Pop or instead of Ruin, then you could go Nurses, because Nurses is within 28 meters. You have a 24-meter tear radius. You'll see them before they even hear you're there. So those are some of the top builds that I would give you and I'd recommend. If there's something you don't have, you can substitute it out with any of the perks that I mentioned today. Main thing with Legion is you want something for tracking. You want something for gen slowdown. I run 2 things for gen slowdown. Actually, I run 3. I run 3 for gen slowdown, and I run 1 for not really tracking. I use his power for that, but this lets me sneak up on those people that I hear are on generators a lot easier, and lets me get around more. Plus, the field of view does help a bit for tracking. So, as long as you have tracking, as long as you have gen slowdown, Legion can be deadly. Legion can be a top tier killer. Don't listen to any tier list or guides that tell you Legion's not a strong killer. Legion is a strong killer if you play well. And I think that's proven by the fact that I've sat at rank 1 for a long time. I actually recently dropped because I was playing a couple games on the new Spirit, and I haven't played Spirit in forever. But to round off the video, if you need an idea for add-ons, the top ones are always Stolen Sketchbooks, Mural Sketch, Legion Pin, and Iridescent Button. Those are the absolute best add-ons. Any combination of those will work, even if you do like double duration. Like this is absolutely fine. If you want to do one of the duration add-ons and Legion Pin, or one of the duration, then as long as you have a duration add-on for Iridescent Button, that's the important thing. And same with Legion Pin. You can't really combine these together because there's just not enough time in your power to make effective use of these. But throw in one of these. You could even honestly throw in the Mischief List if you don't have either of these. It's going to be a little less rewarding because you don't have as long of duration, but it's not as bad. I think I actually have a few videos. I think right now my main thing that I'm doing is this. I'm doing Mischief List and Legion Pin because I don't have many Mural Sketch or Stolen Sketchbooks, so I'm kind of waiting. I am also level 46. I'm about to Prestige him again. I had him Prestige 3, level 50 for the longest time on Xbox. I switched over to PC to get more competition and to better myself. And on this journey, I think I did. So this is going to be my 6th time Prestiging Legion. I noticed that in the community there's not many Legion mains out there, or people that are willing to sit there and play Legion constantly every day. I am. So if there's ever any video or any questions you guys have or want to know about on Legion, do let me know. Leave a comment. I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. And I may be streaming tomorrow if you want to stop by and check out. It should be 4 p.m. Central Time. It will depend on my sickness and how I'm feeling. I will leave updates on that. Again, sorry if my voice sounded a little off in this video, or if or if some things weren't so clear. If there are any other questions you guys have on these add-ons, on these builds, or any other perks you want to ask about, please let me know. I hope that this was informative enough for you, but I understand that there are some things I can miss. Kind of got sick brain going, so again, forgive me on that. But at the end of the day, I hope this guide helped at least some of you get the idea of where to go for Legion and how to maybe better some gameplay if there were some small aspects you're missing, or maybe just you had the wrong idea on certain add-ons, on what they did or how useful they were. Anyways, you guys have a wonderful night, and thank you for joining the Legion.